I'm going to tell you my story of my near-death experience when I was 4 years old. I was a little boy in South Manchester, and I fell backwards out of a window on the ground floor. It was about 3 or 4 feet at most, and I fell backwards onto a concrete slab in the front garden. I was 4 years old, coming up to 5, and I was thrown straight out of my body, and I stood above my little child's body, and I could see blood pouring out of my little blonde head. I was blonde then, and I realised I was in 2 places at once. Something was very wrong, and I was a little afraid, but it all felt weird but strangely natural. And my body felt light. There was less pressure. It's a lovely feeling. And I turned around and I saw in the middle of the garden what looked like a really tall man, a kind of old guardian figure, ancient, young in appearance but really ancient feeling, and he had a long greyish light off-white robe on, and he gestured for me to come towards him. He didn't say anything. I just had this sense that it was okay to be with him and follow him. He was standing in almost like a shaft of light coming down from another dimension. It's hard to explain. And he took me with him, and we went through this really amazing energy field, kaleidoscopic vortex. There was people that knew me there. There was like eyes watching me. There were intelligences that knew me. It was really scary, and just the strangest multi-dimensional rocket ride I've ever had in my life. And then I found myself standing in front of this amazing, beautiful, bright, loving light of pure intelligence, brighter than 10,000 suns, and awesome and all-knowing. And I felt naked, and it knew me intimately, everything I'd ever thought or did or said, and it still loved me. It accepted me, and I had a choice to be with it. It was like being overwhelmed by the infinite, and there was some impulse in me that drew back, and I had this knowingness that this light is where I'd come from, where we'd all come from. But it was pure power, and also terrifying. Its power, its strength, and its infinite love was really humbling. And immediately I drew back. I found myself in a garden, in this beautiful otherworldly place, in what looked like a Greek pavilion, which had a little roof over it, but it was open to the elements, and there was about 5 or 6 people, all like the previous man. They're very tall, guardian type people. Some felt male, some felt female. They're all different heights, they're all human. They all were wearing these long, elegant, simple robes, sort of off-white colour, and the peace and silence there was beautiful. And they all knew me, and they know me way longer than I've been alive on this earth, almost eons, and they felt like old friends and a spiritual family. And their goodness and their purity was wonderful. And they had a sense of humour, and they were just holding me and reassuring me that it was all going to be all right. And I was really happy to be with them, and I wanted to stay there. But they said, you're going to have to come back to Earth. We're not sending you away, you just have to go back. And I asked why, like in my mind, because they all talk in their mind now, And they said, it's because of your brother. I have a twin brother. And we're obviously here for a reason, to be together. And then I found myself falling like a stone from heaven, bang, straight into my body. And I just woke up with a real pain in my head. I could hardly see. And got up and went to the front door and knocked on the door. And my mum answered, and the look of horror on her face was priceless, because I had blood pouring down my head then. And before I knew it, I was ushered onto a stretcher, which I didn't want to go onto, into an ambulance, taken to Manchester Royal Infirmary. And it was all a bit of a drama. And I was more upset that my mum couldn't come with me in the ambulance, but they wouldn't let her. And then I got to the hospital, and the doctors, I was rushed into the theatre, and I was telling the nurses and the ambulance staff and the doctors and everybody that I'd just seen a beautiful, bright, loving, intelligent light, and I'd been to heaven, and I was out of my body, and it was all amazing. And some of them were just going, yes, yes, and humouring me. And two nurses, one young and one middle-aged, said we'd heard this story once or twice from old people, almost exactly the same story, and they'd come back, they'd lived. And a middle-aged man who'd had a heart attack, I think he'd been on the operating theatre, and then they stitched me up and sent me home. And after about 2 months, my mum was really tired of hearing this story and said, to my disappointment, and she was quite angry, I don't want to hear this anymore. It was all in your mind. And I was very hurt by that. But I've never forgot it. It's still the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my life.